morning and welcome to Morning Coach Today. I am so glad you're with us. Hey, it's JB, excited you're with us this Monday. It is 9/20/2021, ready to take it on, episode number 4364. And yeah, we're a little tardy today. What happened was my internet was down. So I had to redo the CoachCast this morning because we couldn't get the internet up, and wanted to let you know that is what's going on. So those of you in the West Coast on the other west side are good because you didn't have to wait till 8:30 this morning until our internet finally came up. It was a crazy weekend, and we just didn't get our internet went down. So it was crazy. It was great to see Richard finish sixth in his tournament. That was huge over there in Europe. Congratulations, Richard. Just want to throw some love out there. And then hopefully you got a chance to watch the video that I did on Sunday with the Sunday email yesterday. And that basically went over kind of what we're doing in the structuring of what's going on. And I want to make a note of that because this week we're talking about mindfulness, and we're going to get into that. Today's What is Mindfulness? But I want to talk about, kind of what we're doing within the structure to help you with the coaching program. So one of the big things that we're doing is now if you see the compass, which is on the website, right? You can go there, you can click September. We're going to continue to work. We've got it all built out in decent shape. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be staying topical across the board. And what I mean by that is obviously this month it's health. So when you go into the fans page, you're going to see posts on health. If you go to Twitter, if you go to Facebook, you're going to see congruent messages with what we're talking about within the framework of the show. Okay, so you're going to start to see a little bit more structure and organization to everything that we're doing, which hopefully is going to give you structure and organization. Now, there's been some questions on the PDCA, and I talked a little overview of that also. But basically what I'll do is give you a little bit more when you are working in that. The PDCA specifically goes with the Get It Done Now coaching program, meaning it's a plan. You're checking and acting on the plan. That's the specific thing that you should be doing. So you should be doing that either on paper, like within the framework of your plan. You know, when we do December planning, and again, if you're new and you haven't had a chance to do your planning, then what you want to do is do the quick start guide and get a basic plan in place. Then once that plan is in place, we're working on it, and we're constantly evaluating what's happening with the plan, but we don't want to be evaluating all the time. So meaning you do the plan, then you do, and that's when we're in a do month, you're just working. You're not evaluating at that time. You're just getting things done, okay? That's the do. Then you're going to check it. Where am I at with my plan when we're in those check months? And then you act on it, meaning you change the plan according to the data that you've gotten from the due months. And so it's a four checks during the year on the initial plan. And I think that's really important to understand that we're not creating a new plan. We're not looking at redoing everything. The only time that occurs is if something major happens in life and we need to make a big change. And that does happen sometimes, right? And that's when we will make a change. But I want you to understand those basics, and we're going to go into it more here on the show. Whenever we do a CoachCast, we'll obviously be incorporating that compass and the structuring, so it's just tighter. We're tightening everything down, so you've really got a structured, solid coaching system going into 2022. That's what's so critical. Okay, so just want to make a note of that. If you get a chance to watch that video, that would be fantastic. And then you're kind of up to speed with what we're doing, and we're really getting the team organized and producing more content specific to what we're looking to do. Okay, today I want to talk a little bit about mindfulness. And mindfulness is a really important piece of what we do here at the show. It's really been a big part of my life. You know, it's really understanding how you feel in the moment, why you're acting the way that you're acting, why you're doing what you're doing. I think in everything that we do, mindfulness plays a big role. The problem is we tend to become less mindful. We tend to escape using different things, whether it's watching a movie, that's an escape from mindfulness. You're kind of in the movie, right? Sometimes substances like alcohol and drugs, they will take you away from the current moment. Sometimes those will help you focus a little bit more on the moment. Like caffeine sometimes is something that will get your mind in a better place. For some people, everybody's different, right? But the idea behind mindfulness is to walk that line of presence, to become more present in life. And it's like I said, a big part of what we do. I will never forget when this really hit me the hardest was I was reading Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. I was probably 34 years old or 33 years old. I was working in aerospace, running Aero Hardware, and I was happy, but I wasn't really happy. And I would have to drive to work every day. And my number one goal is freedom. And it just, I don't know, I was just burning out. I was traveling, then I didn't want to travel anymore. And it just wasn't fun, right? It wasn't a fun part of my life. And it's when I started studying metaphysics. And I really started digging into the world's religions and trying to figure out there has to be a better way to live this life than this grind that I felt that I was in. And again, one of the things that was really big was, I was trying to use gratitude to get through it, meaning I was trying to refocus or kind of give myself a different way to think about it. Like I would wake up in the morning and be grateful for my job, be grateful for the things in my life, and really trying to get over the negative energy that I had, but I couldn't. And I actually felt real guilty for that because I'm like, geez, my parents, they never made this kind of money or had this type of lifestyle, and they worked every day of their life. Why do you feel the way that you feel? And I felt guilty for that. I felt guilty that I was not feeling positive about my situation. I felt real guilty. And so I used to, I was really struggling and I didn't know how to overcome it. I really didn't. I wasn't into coaching then. Just wasn't into any of that. I mean, I'd listened to Zig Ziglar and, all the Tony Robbins and it got me to where I was in my career. But nobody was talking about kind of the spiritual happiness and joy part of it. So as I started digging into that, and I would go to the Barnes and Noble's bookstore and they'd have a esoteric or metaphysical section. I'd go over there and, this is where Esther Hicks was and Eckhart Tolle and, the Course in Miracles and kind of that gray area kind of stuff. And I would look through there and I started reading books and I picked up The Power of Now. And I started reading it. And really, the beginning of that book, the first part of the book, I think is very spiritual. It's unbelievable as you start reading it to understand the moment, to understand where you're at. And as I started reading that, I started to understand that I needed to become more present. I needed to become more mindful. Why was I, in a job? Why was I doing what I did? How did I get there? And why am I miserable? What are the components? And then more importantly, how do I make the change in my life out of this misery to happiness? And so as I started reading that book, I started to realize that I needed to become more mindful and more present. And that meant actually taking an active role in my presence, really digging in to see what that meant. And so as I was driving to work one day, and again, I'd have this hour-long drive, and depending on traffic, it could be an hour and a half. And so typically, I get up super early and go in so I could beat the traffic. And I was driving in, and I wasn't, again, not that excited. I was kind of down, but was reading this book, and it was kind of giving me a different approach or different look on life. And I'll never forget that the traffic was horrible. And so as I sometimes do here in South Florida, I went on a back street trying to get around an accident or whatever has caused the backup on the highway. And as I drove up to a light, I'll never forget looking to the right, and that book was sitting in my passenger seat. And I looked up, and there were this tangled web of wires and like a bird's nest up in there and just nasty sky with just like a telephone pole, right? And it had all these wires. And I just remember thinking, gosh, that's just ugly. And then I remember thinking, well, just get present, like just see it. And I was looking at it in a different way. It was like I put on a pair of different glasses, right? Like everything came into focus and I could really see the wires and the tangling and the bird's nest. And the sky became a little more blue and the colors just changed. And it was a moment in my life when I became totally present. And I just found joy. Like it was the weirdest thing. Like I found joy in looking up at that bird's nest and looking at that telephone pole. I found joy in knowing that I was alive. I found joy in knowing that I could make the changes that I needed to make. Like I found joy in life. Like it was crazy in a moment. I really felt that. And That was probably the first time in my life outside of like playing sports and getting in the zone where I just felt like I was just kicking butt, that I was ever really in a mindful state. And it really just changed a lot of things for me. I started to practice that more and try to become more mindful into the things that I wanted to do. And that's when I had the discoveries of, wow, why don't I write a book? Why don't I start helping other people? Why don't I go down this direction? And that led me to writing Get Out of Neutral and really helping people in that book understand the ideas of patience and understanding the metaphysical ideas and stuff. Really, that's what that led me to. And then working to become more present allowed me to do other things that were really great and just leave the job and have the confidence to go out there and, start Morning Coach as a conference call. In case you don't know the history of Morning Coach, if you're new with me, this was actually a conference call, and we use freeconferencecall.com. I'd left my job, and in the morning, I would get up and I would do a conference call at 7:45, I believe, and then like 10:30 for the West Coast, and people would call in and listen. And we broke the lines because we had too many people listening. We used MySpace to kind of advertise. And that's when we went to podcasting because we had to figure out what to do. And the podcast became a hit, and I was able to really build a business around, this philosophy of living life and doing on your terms, right? Figuring out how to build on your terms. And that's what we're expanding to is really, figuring out what we can do. And again, when we look at that video I did yesterday and I put it up and you look at that beginning plan that we talk about, if we look at the 4 steps really of the coaching process, which is, again, this is really new. This is where we're evolving in. That, you've got to really understand what you want to do. And I think that's the biggest issue. Like that clarity issue is such a problem for so many people. Like me, I was in a job. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I thought I was supposed to become a corporate CEO. I thought that's what I wanted to do. I thought I would go into work every day and come home and, white picket fence and, that whole an American dream, working for a company, that's what I thought I wanted to do, but I didn't want to do that. So I was broken from the beginning because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Because, if you think about it, we've got to first get kind of clarity of what you want to do. So once I knew I wanted to leave my job, then it was like, okay, where am I at? Like, where am I at? And I had to look at my finances and the debt that I had and try to figure out, okay, what are my next steps? This is where I'm at. Then I had to go get the options. And for me, the options were to join the National Speakers Association, start meeting speakers, write a book, try to look at Zig Ziglar's life and Tony Robbins and go, okay, what did those guys do? That's how I put the options together and then start building the plan. And that's what I did. And that's really the coaching cycle that we're doing here together. And it all starts at the beginning, really getting clear about what you want. And that's why I put the white belt and the yellow belt together because so many people have issues with that. Then you start working on the plan. And then as you're working the plan, you're becoming mindful. And where mindfulness comes in is in that check act. It's actually all the time, but it's really understanding why you feel the way you feel. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you have the energy that you have? Why are you going out on the weekends and doing, hanging out with the type of people you're hanging out with if they're not bringing you happiness? Why do you play golf? Why do you do the things that you do? And being able to be present enough and conscious enough to then make a change according to your feelings. And that's really what we're trying to establish is that ability to put a plan together, a PDCA plan, that you're mindful and you went into it mindful. And it's like, this is what I want to do. Not because it's a consumeristic thing, but it's like, this is what I want to do. Okay, then what are the options to get you there? And I've always said that's where the real value of our community comes in because we've got amazing people doing amazing things. Jacob right now, I could see he's posted on Facebook, he's working on his weight. So it's great. So if you think about that in the content of what we're talking about, be mindful. Be mindful that you're losing weight and pick the meals that you want and make sure you don't backslide and be conscious of what you're doing day in and day out, and you will reach that goal. And that's really what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is the ability to see what you really need to be doing in this moment and understanding why you are doing it or why you aren't. And that's really what we got to focus on today. Okay, so we're going to be working on mindfulness all week. Apologize for the internet issue, but we are back and we're rolling. And I just wanted to jump in here real quick and talk a little bit about this PDCA, but also about how mindfulness really fits into everything we're doing. So let's go make it magical today. Go have a great one, and I'll be back with more right here tomorrow on morningcoach.com.